The annual Anderson family garden party was in full swing, transforming my mother's prized rose garden into a showcase of old money and older judgments. Crystal champagne flutes caught the afternoon sunlight while waiters in crisp white uniforms weaved between clusters of my successful relatives. I adjusted my simple black blazer, bought off the rack but tailored to perfection, and made my way through the crowd. "Darling, you finally made it." My mother's voice carried that familiar blend of social polish and disappointment. She wore a custom Dior dress in pale blue, her pearls gleaming as she air-kissed my cheek. "Everyone's been asking about you." I doubted that. The last thing the Anderson family actually wanted was updates about their black sheep daughter who'd walked away from the family's real estate empire to play with computers, as my father called it. "Still living in that tiny apartment?" Aunt Margaret's voice dripped with fake concern as she sipped her champagne. Her Hermes scarf fluttered in the breeze, a $500 silk reminder of what she considered proper success. "I heard of a lovely little efficiency apartment in my building. The doorman's daughter just moved out." I could put in a word. "I'm comfortable where I am, thank you," I replied, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. Behind Aunt Margaret, the massive outdoor TV screen my mother had installed for these parties played CNBC on mute, stock tickers scrolling across the bottom. "Comfortable." My cousin Victoria joined us, her engagement ring catching the light. "Is that what we're calling it now? You know, there's no shame in admitting you need help. The family has connections." I checked my phone discreetly as another message from my executive team came through. The IPO was proceeding exactly as planned. 4 years of working in secret, building my tech company from nothing while my family assumed I was finding myself. "Speaking of connections," my mother chimed in, "your brother just made partner at his firm. Youngest in the company's history." She gestured to where my brother stood holding court by the fountain, his custom suit and gold watch broadcasting his success to anyone within eyeshot. "That's wonderful," I said, taking another sip of champagne. My phone buzzed again. The stock exchange would open in exactly 3 minutes. "You could have had a corner office at Anderson Properties." My father appeared, his disappointment as heavy as his gold signet ring. "Instead you're what? Doing freelance web design? At your age." I smiled, remembering the stack of acquisition papers sitting on my desk. Anderson Properties would be coming to me for office space soon enough. "Something like that." "Well, at least some of us are carrying on the family legacy," Aunt Margaret said, turning toward the TV screen. "Though I suppose someone needs to design websites for actual successful people." The scrolling ticker at the bottom of the screen suddenly stopped. The breaking news banner flashed across the screen. My phone lit up with 100 notifications at once. The champagne glass slipped from my mother's perfectly manicured fingers, shattering on the marble patio. Every head turned toward the TV as the headline blazed, "Quantum Tech Goes Public. Youngest Female Billionaire Takes Wall Street by Storm." My photo filled the screen as the stock price climbed. $4.2 billion and rising. "I should take this call," I said calmly, holding up my phone as my father's face went pale. "My board's waiting." I walked toward the house, my heels clicking on the marble, leaving behind the sounds of shattering social expectations and 4 years of dismissive judgments. The real show was about to begin. "You're bored." My brother's voice cracked as he moved closer, his former confidence wavering. "What are you talking about?" I held up one finger as I answered my phone, making sure they could all hear. "James. The opening exceeded projections. Schedule the press conference for 3 p.m. I ended the call and turned back to my stunned family. Aunt Margaret grabbed the remote, unmuting the TV just as the financial analyst began speaking. "Revolutionary quantum computing breakthrough. Sources say major tech giants are already lining up licensing deals. The 30-year-old CEO has managed to keep her identity private until today's historic IPO." "This is some kind of mistake," my father interrupted, his face flushed. "You've been working out of a 1-bedroom apartment." I pulled out my phone again, showing them my private banking app. The numbers made my mother grab the nearest chair for support. "That tiny apartment is the penthouse of a building I bought 2 years ago. I just let you all believe what you wanted to believe." But the family legacy." My mother stammered, still staring at the TV where stock prices continued to soar. "I built my own legacy," I replied, sliding my phone back into my pocket. A sleek black car pulled up to the garden gates. And speaking of buildings, you might want to check who just bought the Anderson Properties headquarters last week. Victoria's husband, a junior executive at Anderson Properties, was already frantically typing on his phone. She's right. The purchase was finalized through a shell company, but... His voice trailed off as he connected the dots. The board meeting starts in 20 minutes, I said, checking my watch. A subtle Patek Philippe that cost more than my brother's car. I should go. Wait, my father called out, his voice lacking its usual authority. We should talk about this. As a family. I paused at the garden gate, turning back one last time. Funny. For 4 years, none of you wanted to talk about my work. You were too busy planning Victoria's wedding, celebrating Brad's partnership, and reminding me about that efficiency apartment opening. I smiled as my driver opened the car door. But you're right. We should talk. I'm having a little corporate event next week. I'll have my assistant send you the details. As I slid into the back seat, I caught one last glimpse of their faces in the rearview mirror. The carefully constructed world of Anderson family superiority was crumbling, and the garden party would never be the same. My phone buzzed again. The stock had jumped another 15%. I smiled, thinking about the board meeting ahead. They hadn't even seen what was coming next. The next week arrived with the force of a tsunami. My little corporate event was actually the grand opening of Quantum Tech's new headquarters, a gleaming 70-story tower in the heart of the financial district. I'd deliberately chosen the lot directly across from Anderson Properties, ensuring my family would have a perfect view of their new reality. Standing in my private office on the top floor, I watched the city lights flicker on as sunset painted the sky. My assistant, Sophia, entered with a tablet in hand. Your family just arrived in the lobby, Ms. Anderson. All of them. She paused, suppressing a smile. Your father seems quite interested in the fact that his building's shadow is now completely blocked by ours. I smoothed my Armani dress, a deep midnight blue that cost more than my mother's monthly country club dues. Have security escort them to the main conference room. The one with the view of their building. And the Anderson Properties acquisition papers? Leave them face down on the table. I checked my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. Let's make them wait 15 minutes. The conference room fell silent as I entered. My family sat clustered together, looking uncomfortably out of place despite their expensive clothes. The wall-length screens behind me displayed real-time data from our quantum computing networks, numbers flowing like digital waterfalls. Welcome to Quantum Tech, I began, noting how my father's eyes kept darting to the papers on the table. I thought it was time for a proper family meeting. This is impressive, my mother managed, her knuckles white around her clutch. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you. I laughed softly, pressing a button that transformed the windows into transparent displays. Our company statistics floated in the air between us. Like when I tried to explain quantum computing at Christmas 3 years ago, and Aunt Margaret suggested I take a typing course instead? Victoria shifted uncomfortably. We didn't understand. No, you didn't want to understand, I corrected her, bringing up a new display. This is what my little website business has been doing. We've revolutionized data processing. Every major tech company, government, and financial institution is lining up for our technology. My brother, finally finding his voice, leaned forward. And Anderson Properties? Why buy our building? I turned over the papers on the table. Because your company is failing, Brad. Dad's old-school methods can't compete in today's market. You're 3/4 away from bankruptcy. The color drained from my father's face as he scanned the documents. These numbers. This can't be right. They're right. And I'm offering to save the company. I sat down at the head of the table. But there will be changes. Starting with the management. You want to take over? My father's voice cracked. I already have. I pressed another button and the screens filled with shareholding data. I've been buying through subsidiaries for months. As of this morning, I own 51% of Anderson Properties. My mother's designer bag slipped from her lap. But the family legacy will be preserved, I assured her, under new leadership. Your choice is simple. Accept my offer to merge with Quantum Tech, or watch Anderson Properties collapse under its own debt. The silence stretched as my father stared at the acquisition papers, his hands trembling slightly. This isn't a hostile takeover, I continued, softer now. It's a rescue. But things will be different. No more nepotism. No more looking down on tiny apartments and website businesses. And if we refuse? Aunt Margaret challenged, though her voice lacked its usual bite. I stood straightening my jacket. Then I'll buy the remaining shares when the company collapses, and you can watch from that efficiency apartment you were so keen to recommend. The city lights twinkled behind me as my family absorbed their new reality. Their world of comfortable superiority had just been turned upside down. The papers need to be signed tonight, I said, checking my watch. I have another meeting in an hour. With the governor. 3 months after the acquisition, I stood at the podium in the grand ballroom of the Quantum Tech Tower. The merged company's celebration gala was in full swing, though it felt more like a coronation than a corporate event. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same relatives who once mocked my poor life choices now sat in the front row eagerly awaiting my speech. When I started Quantum Tech in my tiny apartment, I began, enjoying the slight flush on Aunt Margaret's cheeks. I had a vision that went beyond traditional success. Today, our quantum computing solutions are revolutionizing everything from climate change models to medical research. The screens behind me showcased our latest achievements. Hospitals using our technology to cure previously untreatable diseases, environmental projects reversing decades of damage, and financial systems being transformed. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. And yes, I continued, we've also transformed Anderson Properties. Our real estate division, under new leadership, is now pioneering smart building technology that's changing how people live and work. I'd kept my promise about ending nepotism. Brad wasn't partner anymore. He was learning the business from ground up, starting in project development. Surprisingly, he was thriving without the safety net of the family name. Victoria had discovered a talent for sustainable architecture and was leading our green building initiative. But tonight isn't just about business success, I said, my voice softening. It's about family legacy. Not the kind built on inherited privilege, but one forged through innovation, determination, and yes, even failure. My father straightened in his chair. The past 3 months had aged him, but there was something new in his eyes. Respect. He'd been coming to my office regularly, not to challenge my decisions but to learn. Yesterday he'd finally asked about quantum computing. The true measure of success isn't in the size of your apartment or the prestige of your address, I continued, looking directly at my mother. It's in the impact you make, the lives you change, the boundaries you push. The ballroom fell silent as I raised my glass. To the future of quantum tech and Anderson Properties. To new beginnings. Later that evening I found myself on the rooftop garden, an exact replica of my mother's rose garden, but 70 stories closer to the stars. My father joined me, his steps hesitant. Your grandmother would have been proud, he said quietly, studying the city lights. She started Anderson Properties with nothing but a dream and a borrowed typewriter. I know, I smiled. She's the one who taught me to code. On that old computer in her study, remember? While everyone else was at the country club. He turned to me, surprise evident on his face. I never knew that. There's a lot you never knew, Dad. But now you're learning. We all are. My phone buzzed, another breakthrough in our quantum research division. But for once I let it wait. Some moments deserved full attention. The board wants to expand into Asia, I said casually. Think you're ready to lead that initiative? His eyes widened. You'd trust me with that? Prove yourself like everyone else, and yes. I handed him a tablet. Start by learning about quantum-enhanced market analysis. Your first lesson is tomorrow at 8 a.m. He took the tablet, a smile slowly spreading across his face. Yes, boss. As we stood there, the night breeze carried the scent of roses. Below us, the old Anderson Properties building stood in the shadow of our new tower, a reminder of how far we'd come. My mother's garden parties now happened up here, though they were different now. Less about showing off status, more about celebrating actual achievements. Aunt Margaret had even apologized last week, admitting she'd framed my old tiny apartment photo. To remind herself never to judge too quickly, she'd said. My phone buzzed again. The quantum computing breakthrough was making headlines. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove ourselves. But tonight, standing in this garden in the sky, I was simply a daughter watching her father learn to see her, really see her, for the first time. Sometimes success isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about giving them a chance to be right finally. Come on, Dad, I said, heading toward the elevator. We have work to do.